Well, we got to talk about Russia and Ukraine because remember that big peace deal we were expecting to get announced by Beijing? Oh man, the peace deal is here. Are we going to see peace between Ukraine and Russia? Let's look at the multiple different parts of the peace deal suggested by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the People's Republic of China. But first, before we go into that, it's very important to remember that China's potentially considering delivering lethal weapons to Russia, something they haven't done. Previously, they've only been delivering parts for things like radar and jammers and planes and jets. Massive supply chain shortages, by the way, in jets and aerospace. Maybe because of the war, maybe because it's just an industry that all of a sudden saw a lot more demand during COVID than ever before. Let me put it this way. You don't want to own a plane right now. It's very expensive to do so. But anyway, China is also now considering ramping from just those, sorts of supplies to Russia, but ramping to potentially lethal weapons going to Russia, which would be seen as an escalation of the war. Iran is already doing so, supplying lethal weapons to Russia, including potentially building a suicide drone facility about 600 miles outside of Moscow. That's not great. That gives them, that creates a less risk that those sort of weapons are seized in transit. A lot of weapons that flow, for example, from Iran to Yemen to support the Houthi rebels end up getting seized by the United States. And now the United States, in counter to UN standards, is potentially considering taking those seized weapons and providing them to Ukraine, which is not what you're supposed to do. That would be against traditional war conventions, but they're suggesting that, well, Russia is breaking war conventions. It's a mess. But anyway, China is like, hey, look, we want peace because even though Russia is only like the 20th largest economy in the world, they're an important trading partner to us. And we don't want our big ally to be destroyed after this, economically, whatever, militarily, super weakened, whatever. We also don't want nuclear war because as the letter that we reviewed just a couple days ago, Xi Jinping makes it very, very clear that his focus is on growing China's economy. And he's if I gave you a bottom line of what Xi Jinping has to say in his massive sort of speech to the country, which is briefly on screen here, Xi Jinping is basically talking out of both sides of his mouth going, we love capitalism, but don't worry, we still love socialism, but boy, capitalism is great. It's kind of like they touched, the white powder to see what it is, and they took like a little taste of it, and they're like, we need more of that. But don't worry, we are not addicts. That's a little bit what it feels like. So what is this peace deal that China is now proposing to Ukraine and with Russia? Well, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the People's Republic of China has the following to say. They say that we should respect the sovereignty of all countries, and there should be an equal and uniform application of international law. Okay, that's fantastic for a peace deal, right? But what about the annexed territories? Whose land is that? Because if you don't address the annexed territories, and if you're not saying should Russia give those annexed territories back, and basically let Ukraine keep those and essentially unannex them, and then take the egg and face as Russia being able to, Russia basically having to go back to their people going, we need to unannex the places we annexed. That just looks like crap, right? So without China actually addressing that, this starts off a little loony because you've got to address Crimea, you've got to address Donetsk, and then you've got to address Luhansk. This is very important. Without that, you're basically saying, hey, let's have a ceasefire and we'll just leave the Russian troops in these territories because Russia owns it now, right? Hey, quick note, Ricky Caruth on YouTube made a phenomenal review of his shadowing experience with me. So if you're interested in that, learning more about me or my personality and what I'm like in real life, or those programs on building your wealth, linked down below, use that flash sale. We've got a 69% off discount for you on all the programs on building your wealth. The most common right now are 0 to millionaire real estate investing and stocks and psychology of money, which come with trading, fundamental analysis, long-term analysis, my thesis on the market, Q&A with me and daily market open live streams, and in the Elite Hustlers course, we've got custom live streams on the weekend. No addressing at all of the annexed territory. So that kind of makes this letter worthless, but let's see what else they say. We have to abandon Cold War mentality. Okay, this is basically where they're saying well, I'll just read this moment. The security of a region should not be achieved by strengthening or expanding military blocs. So basically they're saying, hey, stop invading each other, stop NATO expansion. Can't we just all be friends and not have NATO expand? Damn it, China, so far y'all not doing so great with your peace. Like this is your big 1-year anniversary peace deal. I mean, like, I guess we could call it a good effort, at doing something, because it doesn't seem like anybody else is doing anything in terms of trying to negotiate peace. But I don't think this is really going anywhere. Russia and Ukraine should work in the same direction to resume direct dialogue. Okay, that's good. They should. And if China can bring them to the table, hats off to you, China. So I actually think at least they're making an effort. It's kind of like a half-ass effort, if you ask me, but at least they're making an effort. Resolving the humanitarian crisis. Well, duh. Everybody should agree with that. And I do love that they say this. Russia, you need to stop attacking civilians or basically bombing, like, elementary schools and apartment buildings, because that's effed up. That's fair. Like, not only is that fair, like, that just, like, brings tears to my eyes, because that is effed up. But what it is, it's so there are two types of warfare. There's battle warfare, and then there's total war. No, and I'm not talking about, like, the video game Rome Total War. Total war and battle warfare are very different. Battle warfare is essentially like when you march to the front lines with your flutes and your drums and you fight each other, and then, okay, whoever wins more battles ends up winning the war, right? Obviously, we don't have flutes and drums anymore on the battlefield that I'm aware of, but generally battle warfare is how modern wars are thought to be fought. And the idea there is that we don't want to, like, loot and pillage innocent people's homes and their, elementary schools and stuff, because that's effed up. Russia is unfortunately still taking the total warfare approach, which is a very sort of like Viking mentality of let's just bomb the crap out of everything. Energy infrastructure, churches, schools, apartment buildings, because all the people who are still here are supporting the war effort in some way. So we're going to take a total warfare approach to try to win the war and just like demoralize Ukraine. It's not great, right? Total warfare is the worst form of warfare, and it's very sad for the people who, for whatever reason, haven't left or couldn't leave, whatever. Obviously, because they're probably dead. Well, some of them. Anyway, okay. Then, so China, fair point here, but I think we can all agree on that. Keeping nuclear power plants safe. They're basically saying stop attacking Ukraine's energy infrastructure, especially where the nukes are, man. Like, we don't want nukes at war, and we need to reduce the strategic risks. Like, why Russia? Why are you loading nuclear weapons for strategic deployment onto your warfare ships? Like, this is how we start World War III. Please put your nukes back in the silo. Nuke in silo, not on ship. That's basically what they're saying here. Facilitate grain exports. Look, we got the rice. You got the bread. Please let the bread keep flowing. Stopping unilateral sanctions. This is basically like, okay, now, in order for us to have peace and to stop pissing Russia off because they got nukes, United States, stop expanding NATO, and please stop sanctioning Russia. And while you're at it, please stop with the tariffs on China. Then, hey, let's work together to keep supply chains stable. And let us have all your technology while you're at it, United States. It's reading between the lines a little bit here. And then, when we rebuild Ukraine, let's all work together. And this is basically China saying, since we've kind of overspent on like rebuilding real estate in China, and now we have ghost cities, but we want to increase our ability to sell goods and services because, after all, capitalism is great. Since we had a little bit of a taste, let's now suggest that when it's time to rebuild Ukraine, we want to join. In other words, China is kind of like, hey, we'll be there to help rebuild because that'll help our GDP too. Now, Jake Sullivan in the United States has so far brushed this letter off as worthless. NATO Secretary General has brushed this off as saying China doesn't have much credibility. You also have NBA players who have been interviewed about this Russia and China involvement, and NBA players are basically scared to talk bad about China because guess where a lot of their products are manufactured? Oopsie doopsies in China. Yes, some are manufactured in other Asian countries, but also in China. So you kind of have a lot of people who are like, we don't want to say such terrible things about China because we can rely on China for money. Then you also have like apparently these now higher definition pictures of the weather balloon, and they're kind of interesting from China, because these are like up close from I don't know if they're from C-130s or where they took these HD pictures, but they really show a spy balloon that's a lot more than like a weather balloon. I'm trying to find a picture here that's convenient for me to pull up, but basically it looks like a giant satellite hanging from a balloon, and that kind of, I don't know, that kind of makes you a little bit more sussed out about the idea that, yeah, this is just a weather balloon. Although I will say I'm a little suspicious as to why the United States hasn't released more information about what the actual components were on the quote-unquote weather or spy balloon. Here we go. Here's a picture on Twitter. Thank you very much. Look at this. This is a picture of a close flyby of the balloon. You can take a screenshot of it if you want. Steal whatever you want from me. It's fine. I still love you. I don't know, man. That looks like one hell of that basically looks like a low-flying satellite, right? You get your solar power, and then you got lots of equipment. Wish we had a little bit more of an up-close shot in terms of what the details of all that were, but, maybe we'll get that one day. Anyway, so there you have the update on China. Yeah. Now, thank you, by the way, for the donations here. $10, $1. Thank you. I appreciate y'all. $2. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, China. Your massive 1-year anniversary peace deal is a giant nothing burger. But hey, at least China's trying. Oh, it was from a U2 spy plane? What, like they were playing U2 music while on a plane? Sounds good enough for me.